Now we shall look at the philosophical foundations of education, and to begin that we shall look at a definition of what philosophy is. So, by definition, people choose to embrace. If their choices are made in a logical, rational manner, they engage in the process of doing philosophy. In other words, individuals have to decide for themselves what they think, why they think, how whatever that's happening makes them think in that particular way, and that combined philosophy of individuals then leads them to a group activity and a group analysis of what philosophy is all about, and that leads to philosophical inquiry, finding out now, believing what we believe, expecting what we expect, to find out the results of what our beliefs are. Right or wrong, that is coming later on. And there are 4 specific areas of philosophical inquiry. If we want to find out based on philosophy, we have to use one of these 4 areas or approaches. So let's look at those 4 areas. The first one is metaphysics, which is concerned with questions about the nature of reality. In other words, metaphysics deals with the real. What is the real? And everything that we see, we can touch, we can feel, we can hear, we can taste are all real. In other words, everything in this universe is real. So according to metaphysics, if everything was real, man should be involved in finding out about everything, and that basically is education. The second one is epistemology, which is concerned with the nature of knowledge. Now, of the real, the big picture, the everything, we can't possibly study everything or learn everything or explore everything or find out everything. Therefore, what is the truth? What needs to be found out from what exists? That differentiation needs to be made in epistemology. You cannot, it is humanly impossible to study everything. So what are we going to study? And again, what individual people feel for themselves, this is very individualistic. What I think is true is what I'm going to teach. What somebody else thinks is true is what somebody else is going to teach. And therefore, according to this area of philosophical inquiry, no 2 teachers, even if they teach the same grade level and the same subject matter, will teach the same way, because their beliefs, their philosophies differ. The third one is axiology, which is concerned with the nature of values, the moral learning. Okay? We want children to learn. We want them to develop their minds, their bodies. We want them to develop spiritually, but we also want them to develop morally. So what moral basis exists? What values should we teach our young people today? Values are universal. They run across subject matters and they run across disciplines. Values is not something that should be taught in the Islamiyat class alone. Values or morals is something that should be taught across the curriculum. Every teacher should be teaching values and morals, no matter what subject, what grade level the teacher teaches. And if you are alert and active in the classroom, the students provide opportunities for us to teach morals and values in our classrooms. This opportunity should be used by teachers wisely and creatively to teach what is right and wrong in the classroom. For example, when a student cheats, or when a student is late, or when a student is not in class with his or her materials, it's an opportunity to teach some values. And teachers across disciplines could do that, instead of simply relying that the Islamiyat teacher will teach all the values and morals. That is not going to happen. The fourth one is concerned with logic, which is the nature of thinking and reasoning. In other words, when we ask the questions why and how, logic is coming into place. Why do you think so? Why did you say so? Why do you agree? Why do you recommend this? Why did you make this suggestion? Now the students are thinking. Or if you say how did you arrive at this answer? How did you come up with this result? How did you find this out? Then students are thinking, opposed to when we ask the what, where, why questions. Those questions do not foster thinking. If we want our students to be thinking, we must include the why and how questions in everyday teaching, because that is what will make students think. And when you ask students the why and how questions, as the teacher, don't give them the answer. They are not interested in your thinking. We as the teacher are interested in the students' thinking. In the beginning, students may find it difficult to respond to your why and how questions, and therefore you may need to facilitate them in asking the why and how questions and getting the responses from the students themselves.